Time to have a look at what's happening at the Nürburgring right now.
And the good news is that it looks as though we've got good weather here, Bill. It's actually above the forecast temperature at the moment. It's 25 degrees at the circuit. It is overcast. There appears to be no threat of rain. They were forecasting overcast at 23 degrees. You can see how tight it is down at turn 1. Interesting that Mark Webber has qualified pretty strongly again in position 11. Everybody's talking about the fact that Michelin have got tremendous strength again this weekend, and it's a question of whether or not Michael can pull one out of the bag, as he did in Canada, fend off everybody. I would not be surprised at all, and in fact I'm almost 100% certain that Nick Heidfeld will start from pit lane. We saw some shots of him just before the cars departed the grid that looked to me like he was going to start down there. They had a problem. They did an engine change with his car just before qualifying, and when he actually went out to do his qualifying lap, there was some sort of systems fault in the car and the lap wasn't completed. In fact, they had a pretty fraught practice and qualifying with both their cars yesterday. They had to switch Heinz-Harald Frentzen into his T car before qualifying, so both of those guys down the order. New front suspension, new rear wing for the Sauber this weekend.
Watch for Webber, second here in Formula 3000 in 2001. He really enjoys this circuit, said he even enjoyed it last year in the Minardi. And Pizzoni has raced a couple of times here in F3000 too.
And there's a bit of a hint from Mark that the car could be a little bit heavier than some of his nearer rivals as well.
Are the Toyotas light, Neil, do you think, given those times?
Well, the problem is you never really know. A couple of the guys I spoke to over there were suggesting that may be the case, but I actually was in communication with Cristiano just in the last 10-day period, and he reckons they've made genuine gains with this car, and that's confirming what I was talking about there before, that Nick Heidfeld will start from pit lane. That affords them the opportunity of changing the strategy with that car, and he'll fly away when the field passes him adjacent to the pit lane there. I think you're going to have a tremendous motor race here between the Williams cars and certainly the McLarens. A lot of speculation at the moment about whether or not Rubens is going to stay on with Ferrari. Apparently those rumours are real, that he may well go to Sauber. And that silly season apparently is well and truly on over there now.
And is Ferrari searching for the heir apparent to Michael already?
Well, that's the discussion there. Obviously, they've got the long-term contract with him, but I believe there is an exit clause if he feels uncomfortable at any time and doesn't want to continue. One quick point as we just look at Ross Brawn there, the technical director at Ferrari. You see these bollards, much been made of the bollards here in V8 supercar racing in Australia. They're alive and well this weekend at the Nürburgring. Some of the drivers, Jenson Button, for example, complaining bitterly about them, and then Michael came out in support and said, look, if we didn't have them there, we'd all be driving straight across these chicanes. We really do need some control method. Perhaps the curbs might serve us a little better if they were higher, but for the time being, we've got what we've got, and we'll do the best with them, and he thinks that Charlie Whiting's made a good decision to have them.
There's always the threat of rain here at Nürburgring. You just never know. Only 3 drivers in this field have won here. Michael, Jacques, Rubens. Michael, of course, needs just 1 point now for 1,000 in Grand Prix. Don't forget, too, Jacques' first win was here in 1996, and boy, does he need a result in a very difficult year.
3 wins for Ferrari in the last 3 years. Rubens Barrichello last year and Michael Schumacher the 2 years prior to that.
The European
Kimi Räikkönen in his first pole position. And we are set for a start.
Enjoy the sound. Here we go. Away they go then. Great start from Räikkönen. Schumacher slow away. Ralf Schumacher is attacking him. Down the outside, he's in front. Ralf Schumacher's got his brother, and they said he couldn't pass him. Well, already in this Grand Prix, he's proved them wrong. Barrichello goes wide on the outside. One of the 2 Renaults has done very well off the start line. He's side by side with Montoya, and a Jag looks like it's blown up. Or so no, it's tyre smoke, I think. Mark Webber tyre smoke. But what a move there by Ralf Schumacher off the start line.
Yes, indeed, and everybody got away particularly well on the left hand, the normal race line, as it were, of the grid. 2 Renaults are line astern, so one of them's had a reasonable start, and Räikkönen leads comfortably then from Ralf Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, Barrichello up to 4th, and Montoya then slipping back to 5th. Then it's truly Alonso. Panis, Coulthard, De Mata is 10th.
You're absolutely right, Martin. It was the outside lane of the track, the one where the cars go down, where the most rubber is, that seems to have had a massive benefit to those that were starting on it. Michael Schumacher's lost out. Barrichello has gained. Montoya lost out. It was very consistent off the start line. And all of that is terrific news, not just for Kimi Räikkönen, but also for Ralf Schumacher. He's put 1 bogey behind him then. He's passed his brother on the racetrack.
Yeah, been a bit of talk about that, hasn't there, this weekend, but a great run from him down to the first corner. Raikkonen stretching that lead nicely, and he will be delighted to see a Williams in his mirrors rather than a Ferrari. Barrichello will be pleased with fourth. There's the two Renaults, Panis, Coulthard, D'Amata, Button, Webber, Furman. Was that Furman I saw there? Yes, up to P13. He's passed his teammate Fisichella somewhere.
He's 3 places ahead of Fisichella on the grid. This is one of the strongest weekends so far for Ralph Furman. He was very good in qualifying yesterday, just 0.3 of a second slower than Fisichella, which for a rookie on his first visit to the circuit, I think everyone will agree, is a fine effort, and he's now 3 places ahead of him. So that's a good job. Raikkonen leading, Ralf Schumacher just over a second behind him. Michael Schumacher's third, Barrichello fourth, Montoya in fifth, Trulli sixth, seventh is Alonso, eighth, and the last of the points-paying positions at the moment is the Toyota of Olivier Panis. David Coulthard is still where he started. There he is in 9th place. D'Amata in the second Toyota just behind him, and Jenson Button is 11th. The rest of the Brits. Wilson, has he had his customary great start? No, he hasn't actually. He is down in 18th place, and we mentioned Furman, he's 13th.
Yes, at least Wilson's ahead of Villeneuve, though. I don't know what happened to Jacques on the first lap, but Jacques Villeneuve down in 19th. Heidfeld starting from the pit lane is 20th. Fisichella, the big loser though on the start, lost 3 places. Here is, as it looks, from Michael Schumacher. He started on the front row of the grid in second, but look, Ralph easily driving past him down to that first corner. Then it's very tight behind. Montoya, the two Renaults, Panis screaming down the outside in the Toyota, and that worked very well for him. And the Jaguar was smoking, James. The Jaguar of Webber was smoking, probably just a little overfill or pressurization in the engine there. Ralph so nearly locking up and going into the back of Kimi Raikkonen there. Schumacher, Michael having to settle for third then on the opening lap, and that's where he remains as they enter lap 3.
And that expression on the face of technical director Ross Brawn there on your screens a moment ago is pretty much the expression he's had all weekend. Inscrutable. You wouldn't want to play poker against Ross Brawn. You've no idea what he's really thinking. The one little clue, though, he has given us this season is when his car in Michael Schumacher's hands has qualified well, and it's been carrying a lot of fuel. He has tended to be quite smiley in the reaction shots during qualifying. There was no smile yesterday. It was that inscrutable look. They are really up against it here at the Nürburgring. It's nothing to choose between the top 3, 4, 5 cars, as you can see.
Lead was 1.8 seconds as they went over the line. Further 6/10 back then. Ralf Schumacher second, Michael Schumacher third, 6/10 behind. Barrichello 1.6 behind his teammate. So just spreading out a little bit at the moment. The closest action is truly very close to the back of 5th place man Montoya. On board with the Renault then, heading up there towards the RTL curve, just over the top of that crest. Easy to see when there's cars in front of you. Get a better clue of where the turn-in is, and the Renault's looking strong at this stage too, going well. They've not really shone this weekend, James, have they, in terms of raw pace, Renault, but looking pretty happy at this time. And Raikkonen stretching that lead, Michael Schumacher keeping his brother honest, and Barrichello right with them too.
Yes, you talk about the Renault team. I think they were a little bit mystified. Jarno Trulli yesterday after qualifying in his press briefing was saying that when they came here this weekend they expected to be very competitive, but Friday really was a bit of a washout for them in every sense of the word. And it was something of a surprise to Trulli that he was able to get himself up into 6th place onto the grid after the poor start that they made to the weekend. It should have been a circuit that suited their car, but they were a second off the pace of Ferrari, Williams and McLaren through the early part of the weekend. Trulli managed to reduce that to half a second yesterday in qualifying. Huge bite of handling difficulty there.
Yeah, it's got out of shape on under braking. Did he get past in that move? Panis was 2.4 down, so no, he would not have done, but yeah, fighting the car. Remember, that Renault's on the softer tyres, and we're wondering if that's really the optimum tyre to be on this afternoon.
So let's just talk a little bit then, Martin, about the challenge of Kimi Raikkonen. Obviously in Canada he had a pretty terrible time. He binned it in qualifying, started from the pit lane, managed to fight his way up through the field. But Ron Dennis talked yesterday of a maturity, a growing maturity with Kimi Raikkonen, and he felt that the qualifying performance yesterday was a good example of it. He's out front now in the Grand Prix, looking for his second victory of the season, one which will get him back on terms with Michael Schumacher in the championship. Just tell us a bit about the pressure on his shoulders.
Well, he doesn't appear to even notice it, does he? I mean, he delivered up yesterday under the most extreme of pressure circumstances I can imagine, with a one-lap effort and a great expectation on you. Now he's just pulling away from this lot. He's 2.6 seconds up, lapping 0.9 of a second faster, and look at the lead he's got. He just seems to be totally comfortable with himself and the car, and the other older hands don't affect him. And that's a sign of a true champion, no doubt about it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Michael Schumacher seems to be pretty close up behind his brother Ralph. And as he was in Montreal 2 weeks ago, first 20 laps of that Grand Prix, he couldn't find a way past the Williams BMW. They've certainly made some great improvements to this Williams package. Sam Michael, the team's coordinating engineer, talked over the weekend about them finding about a second, he believes, since the start of the season. But it was definitely there to find. The car was not competitive in the early part of the season. A lot of it's been on the aerodynamic side. There was nothing wrong with the engine. It was really in the chassis that they found the performance. Mechanical grip, aerodynamics, a second has been found in half a season by Williams, and they really are contenders now for the second half of this championship if the last couple of races are anything to go by.
Raikkonen's lead up to 3.9 seconds now. He was a second too faster than anybody else. Shows you what a problem qualifying gives you. Coulthard down in 9th, tucked up behind Panis, lapping 2 seconds away from the ultimate pace. He's already a dozen seconds behind at the end of lap 4, and that unfortunately is what a bad qualifying will cost you down there. The true pace of the car can't be shown when you're in traffic, and by Raikkonen, certainly with clear air in front of him, no pressure, doesn't have to get defensive anywhere on the racetrack, as Ralf Schumacher will now have to start thinking about, as clearly the Ferraris are faster at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Well, they just went blatting through that chicane. I was talking about some changes, and one of the most controversial has been to that chicane. Those bollards have taken several front wings off during the course of this weekend. Jenson Button managed to remove 3 on his BAR during the course of Friday alone. Barrichello's been through there and knocked a wing off, so has Heidfeld. And look at those Renaults, they really are struggling to get into that hairpin, aren't they?
They are indeed, and you just saw the Panis Coulthard fight behind them. Villeneuve's down in 19th and staying pretty much at the tail end. We'll just watch our way through this replay of the start. Look at that, textbook start from Raikkonen. Got all the space he wants, can brake and turn in where he wants. And the Renaults behind him and Montoya supremely close. 2 Ferraris side by side. Barrichello got a great start too, then had to yield in turn 2 there. But one more time then from Michael Schumacher. You'll see the Williams of Ralf Schumacher flash past the left-hand side. The acceleration of these cars is so amazing from a standing start, but if you really hook it up nicely and the electronics are working well and you've got grip on your side of the track, you can easily make 20-30 metres on another car. There then is the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Ted, what can you tell us about Villeneuve?
I've been down to the BAR garage trying to find out what happened with that launch control. Believe it or not, Jacques and his engineer Jock Clear have not had a single conversation about it on the radio. Now to me that says 2 things, really, 1 of 2 things. Either Jacques messed up on the sequence himself, he's too embarrassed about it, which I don't think is very likely, he's been at it a while enough, or the car messed up itself and Villeneuve's too furious to say anything about it.
Or alternative, the radio's not working.
It could be that indeed, James, but remember BAR have had problems with the launch control, one of the myriad problems Villeneuve's had this season, so I wouldn't put it past that system failing again.
Well, clearly then we didn't see it at the tail end, but Villeneuve not getting away well, and that's why he's down in 19th and not moving forward. And he's got Heidfeld, who started from the pit lane, now just 0.3 of a second behind him. Villeneuve starting 17th anyway, but really dismal weekend for Jacques Villeneuve. Sorry to have to say that, but it's working out that way for him. But Raikkonen is just in a class of his own up the front there.
Winner in Malaysia, round 2 of the World Championship. A great start to the season for the McLaren team as we look back from the BMW Williams team. That's the crew, all primed, alert and ready to go. This is lap 7 of 60. We're expecting the front runners in any time between laps 17 and 20, as we said. And a suspicion also that Kimi Raikkonen, his pace at the moment would not suggest it, but certainly yesterday Ron Dennis saying he didn't think that any of the other front runners were carrying more fuel than Kimi was. And if those were to prove to be correct, it really is a remarkable early stint here from Kimi Raikkonen. The Williams and the Ferrari cannot live with him. There's David Coulthard there, you can see, not exactly menacing the back of the Toyota at the moment. Coulthard lapping in the mid to high 1:34s, around about a second off the pace of his teammate at the front.
And and everybody else is too, it has to be said. And on this lap, he's just done a 33.3, Kimi Räikkönen, for a new fastest lap of the race so far. And he's going to be another half second ahead then. So they're beginning to get into the zone. They know where the track is now. There has been other racing out there, a lot of other racing, Formula 3000, Formula BMW, the Porsche Super Cup, since they qualified yesterday afternoon. So it's now, of course, they don't run another hot lap between qualifying and the race itself. And they're now beginning to find out where the grip is, how much the track has changed with the wind direction, the ambient and the grip level after so many other racing cars have been pounding round. The lead 5.8 seconds now, and that's what it looks like in track terms.
Yep, Räikkönen over Ralf Schumacher. There he is coming down the hill then. And Ralf Schumacher 5.8 behind as we look at the scrap between Villeneuve and Verstappen. That's the battle for 17th place on the grid. Heidfeld just behind them in the Sauber, having started from the pit lane, and Villeneuve really monstering the back of Verstappen's car. You'd expect that car to have a great deal more speed, straight line and corner. Going around the outside then, Villeneuve, just giving the inside for the next corner. Hasn't quite worked out though.
It's such a high speed corner, it's 105 through that left-hander, so there's not really a braking zone as such. Jenson Button in the sister BAR up to 11th. So solid, if unspectacular performance in the midfield there from Button at the moment. Furman remains 13th. Wilson has dropped down to 20th, unfortunately. He's obviously had a little problem in there somewhere because he was running ahead of Verstappen.
He was. You just saw him there at the back of your frame. Villeneuve having a little bit of a look then into the left-hander. Can't make it stick. Down through the bit curve then, over 100 miles an hour, onto the back straight.
Surely Jacques can do it now. Get in the slipstream. There is a big stop at the end of this. An equal level of grip from side to side on the track. He now has the right position and he should easily make that move. Villeneuve will now be released and can get underway. But that was really his easiest and best chance, and he took it nicely.
So Villeneuve goes up into 17th place. Verstappen drops to 18th. And Villeneuve starts to drive away a little bit. Jos the boss, nice to see him battling now. Wilson, you just saw at the top of your screens. So Räikkönen leading on lap 9. Heidfeld having a bit of a go side by side with Verstappen, and he makes it stick. That's where Heidfeld went off in qualifying. Verstappen's making it hard for him though. A nice bit of overtaking, 2 passes then in the sequence of a few corners. And oh, Villeneuve's binned it. He's managed to control it though. Oh, we had a huge aquaplane in Friday qualifying, went straight on at the hairpin. Not at all his fault. On a very, very wet track, he was on the wrong tyres, but there he just appeared to drop it.
Well, he was pushing hard, wasn't he? He finally cleared the Minardi. He's got some track in front of him, just wanted to get on with it. There was a gap of some 11 seconds to the main midfield pack, and there, got some understeer in turn 2. Managed to keep it all together, bits and pieces of carbon fibre coming off from underneath the front wing and underneath the strakes that run underneath the car. So he will not be handling as well as he was, and he's got to do it all over again, except now it's 2 Minardis and a Sauber.
Well, that should be an entertaining afternoon for him. At the moment it's plain sailing for Kimi Räikkönen, but a long, long way to go yet in this Grand Prix.
Welcome back, European Grand Prix. We're seeing some great battles in the back of the field, Neil.
Well, how's that spin from Jacques Villeneuve, and what an awkward situation for him now after battling away there and finally making position. He throws it away, gets on top of the painted ripple strip, loops the car around, and now, as you heard Martin say before we went to the break, he's actually got to do it all again, and now he's got 2 Minardis to deal with. So a torturous afternoon for him, and this battle, just have a look at it. And that car of Villeneuve's, look at the body language in that thing, Bill. It is not a comfortable car. It's a twitchy, nervous car. It's not nice over the bumps, and easy for that car to get into an end swapping situation.
There's been so much conjecture about Villeneuve's situation this year. Just into the next.
Focusing for a moment on that start, Bill, and it was a tremendous start from Kimi. He just drove away from everybody down into turn 1, and significant that Ralph was able to jump away as well. And you notice the way that Michael just took his hand off the steering wheel, made an adjustment on the way down towards turn 1, and was kind of almost like, well, here I am, I just cruise up here and do this. It was an astonishing bit of vision to watch him looking so relaxed on the way to the first corner. One of the things that I didn't mention in the discussion is Villeneuve now gets a look up the inside, still can't do it from the dirty side of the road, makes his apex speed very slow across that turn, and It's a rag and tough. Oh, Panis has gone round in the Toyota. What a tragedy after qualifying so well in 7th position. I mentioned at the top of the show that he's actually topped the charts on 2 occasions this weekend as Ralph Furman comes in and makes his first stop. The point I was going to make there, Billy, is this track is extremely difficult to pass on as Furman now comes in and takes service.
Furman in the pits. We're ready to rejoin Martin and James.
Lap 11 of 60 here at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. It's a fantastic scrap for last place in the Grand Prix. Something you don't see very often. Jacques Villeneuve, who certainly doesn't appear at the back all that often, is trying to pass Justin Wilson in the Minardi in front. This is Olivier Panis in the Toyota. Was running in 7th place, but he's not anymore. Look at that, he's dropped it at the first corner. Wheels furiously spinning. Another example, they are.
What I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Look at the tyre wear on the inside of his right front. You run about 3 degrees of camber. The top of the tyre leans in, so you always wear the inside out first. That's also where the braking patches, particularly in the second half of the braking zone, as the downforce bleeds off and the car comes up, the springs are less compressed, the tyre's getting a little bit worn, and suddenly you snatch your brake. Where you were braking before, exactly the same place you braked in the previous 10 laps, and it was fine. All of a sudden, the wheels lock and you go way too deep into the corner. 60% of your braking is through your front tyres. If one of those locks up, you've lost best part of 30% of your braking capacity, but that did release David Coulthard then up into 8. Meanwhile, Furman has pitted at the end of his lap 10 and is down, has moved well down the field, so clearly 3 stopping were the Jordans, and Fisichella in the pits now again for quite an early scheduled stop, and he looks like he's 3 stopping too.
Yeah, that's if those are scheduled stops, and it certainly looks that way, that's disappointing for the Jordan team. There is Ralph Furman, who was anyway in front of Fisichella on the racetrack, but this is only lap 12, and to bring your cars in on laps 11 and 12 means you were running pretty light fuel during qualifying. So I think the Jordans, having qualified in 13th and 14th places, be a bit disappointed with their performance this weekend. That's not quick, is it?
No, it's not. And they flattered to deceive a bit in qualifying then in that respect. Interestingly though, James, this last couple of laps, they've normalised Raikkonen's pace. Everybody's now, Raikkonen's just done a 32.9, the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, and the other players are in the 33, low 33, so Raikkonen's just stretched the lead one more time to 7.3. But the 2 previous laps, they pegged him, and the Grand Prix suddenly stabilised for the first time. Raikkonen, they stopped him pulling away from them.
Or maybe he was either taking a breather or giving the tyres a bit of a breather, but his pace the same for those 2 laps as Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher behind him. Give you an idea of the overall picture then of this Grand Prix. From the start, Kimi Raikkonen taking the lead, Ralf Schumacher jumping Michael Schumacher. He is 7.3 seconds behind race leader Raikkonen as Villeneuve thinks about an attack on Wilson here.
We're going to see a pass here, unless Wilson covers the inside line, which he hasn't done. He's left Jacques exactly the line he needed, and Jacques has been getting too feisty in the 2 corners before that. There's no point, you'll never get through in those, but if you just come out of the pit curve well, he's got the straight line speed and the better downforce and braking capacity, and well, he's pulled the same manoeuvre now on both Minardis. Unfortunately, with that spin, he's got to do it all over again on Verstappen now.
Yeah, I think that was actually Verstappen. Let me just see. Yeah, that was Verstappen. The 2 Minardis have switched order. Corrections, apologies for that. Villeneuve is now behind Justin Wilson. It was Jos Verstappen who he just passed for the 2nd time in this Grand Prix. Here's your race leader then, 7.3 seconds clear of Ralf Schumacher in 2nd. Michael Schumacher just right with his brother, a 2nd behind at the moment on lap 13. Barrichello, he's just under 3 seconds behind his teammate. That was Mansour Oj there, Ron Dennis's partner in the management of the McLaren team. Montoya 1.7 seconds behind Barrichello. You can see the margins between the race leader and the rest. And a very handy opening stint indeed from Kimi Raikkonen as Jarno Trulli in 6th, where he started the Grand Prix as well. Renault seem to have stabilised a little bit on their tyres now. Trulli's pace pretty much the same as the Williams, McLaren and Ferrari in front of him.
Yes, the man who's struggling a bit is Alonso in 7th. He's in the 34s, everybody else in the 32s and 33s. and the two Renaults are going to have Coulthard cruising up behind them anytime soon. De Matter's 9th, 8 seconds behind Button, a very lonely 10th in terms of, you can't see 9th place man, but Mark Webber in the Jaguar right behind Jenson Button. There's a good scrap if we can pick that up on the TV screens. Your leader then, Kimi Raikkonen, now by exactly 8 seconds. Ted.
Well, Martin, you're talking about the Renaults. I've got to say, actually, they're looking pretty good in this. The lap time suggests that they are going to run longer than the Williams.
Ted, must interrupt you, sorry. Jacques Villeneuve's front wing has come undone. I wonder whether he's hit the chicane bollards that we were talking about before, because certainly a number of people done that this weekend, and the man who was giving us the best fight of the Grand Prix has now knocked his front wing off, Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, we saw him spin off exactly here where he is now, so either the damage was done there, we did see pieces of carbon flicking up in the air. I think more likely he's giving the bollards a whack at the chicane, so that somewhat concludes a miserable first part of the Grand Prix. He will stop, have a new nose and read. There we go, look, yeah, it was the bollard on the right hand side, driver error, and they'll change the nose, but that will leave him back at the tail end of the field again. At the moment, the two Jordans are 19th and 20th.
It's like some sort of fairy tale, this, isn't it? It's sort of some sort of terrible dream where you constantly going back and back and back to the back of the grid, no matter how hard you try. Here's the Renaults then getting ready for pit stop. We were hearing from Ted, I interrupted him there when Villeneuve knocked his wing off, as Mark Webber comes into the pits from the Jaguar. Ted, briefly, what was the Renault story?
Well, the Renault story indeed was that they were going to pit soon, and here they go. Webber in, of course, BAR are out for Villeneuve, and Sauber are ready as well. But this is interesting from Renault. I think they're going to do this to try and get round Montoya. Remember, Alonso did set the fastest lap in Canada, so they're going to try and mirror something like they did there. It's going to be interesting, this one.
Frenton in early too. So definitely three stops. They can stretch it here. They've got an opportunity to fuel heavy and make a longer middle stint. Here comes the chasing tail enders at the moment, and Frenton just making it out in front of the Minardi.
Well, I think judging by the stationary time there, the Sauber certainly is on a 3-stop strategy. The Jaguars seem to be stationary for 10 seconds there, Mark Webber, and that would indicate, unless the stopwatch was wrong, that he put a bit more fuel into the car. Maybe he's stretching his strategy out to a 2-stop, but that would be consistent with the way Jaguar have done Grand Prix this year. They have tended to run quite long, at least 2 of the stints of the race. And so here comes Jacques Villeneuve with damaged wing.
And truly in the pits, truly from P6 into the pits then.
Losing a track position to David Coulthard and Cristiano De Matter in the process. Jarno Trulli.
As ever, they'll have to manhandle Villeneuve's car up into the air. The Jack lifts the car on the front wing, can't do that. Front wing is broken. Truly stop is, that's not a lot of fuel in there. So if they're truly 3-stopping, James, I'd have thought they'd have been nearer 7, early 7s, but we don't know exactly who presses that stopwatch button and whether he knows the fuel's going in at that moment or not. And if he was going to try and do a long middle stint, he needed more fuel than that.
Yeah, he's going to do about 20, 21 laps on the fuel load he's taken on board there. That'll take him to lap 37. So it's pretty much a 2-stop strategy. Here comes Panis then. Having had that spin, lost track position, he's now, as you can see, he's behind Jenson Button. So Button is just gone out, he's made a stop himself, waiting for the computer to sort itself out, but Button was running in 10th place. Look at this though, McLaren getting ready. Now, which of the two drivers is this going to be? Kimi Raikkonen out front on lap 16, into the pit lane then for the race leader. He didn't have as much fuel on board as we thought.
That's surprising, isn't it? That surprised a lot of people in the paddock, certainly surprised me. And there's a Ferrari expected in soon too. So they've all fueled, they've all been edged into fueling quite short. Raikkonen had a 5.4 second lead. He'd had to coast in the pits for that. And in behind him then is Michael Schumacher. Away goes Raikkonen with a solid stop. Nothing spectacular.
No, nothing spectacular, but a solid 2-stop strategy. Michael Schumacher's time almost identical. We talked about this being close, didn't we? They're on similar strategies, almost nothing to choose between them. But the lead of the race has now been handed to Ralf Schumacher on lap 17 of this Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Barrichello is second, and Montoya should be in 3rd place, I believe, after the stops of previous race leader Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. But as we said before, all the front runners expected in within 2 or 3 laps of each other.
Okay. See how it shakes out when they've all had their first scheduled stop. Michael Schumacher back out on the racetrack. Now this is where he beat his brother in Canada, because he was so quick, leaving the pits, getting straight on with it. Ralph had elected for used tyres, didn't have that maximum grip of a new set of tyres on the first lap. Claimed he had a bit of traffic, whatever, but these are the crucial laps of the Grand Prix if you want to leapfrog and use the refueling as an opportunity to improve your track position.
But on that occasion, it was the Williams that pitted first, wasn't it? Michael had the extra lap of fuel. This time it's the other way round. Ralph Schumacher's got at least one more, perhaps even two more laps of fuel in his car as Rubens Barrichello comes into the pits. So Michael Schumacher's attempt to jump ahead of his brother is really under quite considerable pressure. It's up to Ralph now to push very hard. His last lap of 1:33.3 is very much on the pace. Montoya is second as Barrichello, who was third, comes into the pits.
Williams 1-2 then. Be interesting to see how far they could go. Bernie Ecclestone's tip for the win this afternoon. And if they stay out for another 3 or 4 laps, that might be rather smart.
Well, we saw Michael Schumacher looking over the shoulder of the FIA guys, weighing Kimi Raikkonen's car after qualifying yesterday. So he knew that information, and you can see there Michael Schumacher sailing past his teammate. Obviously, Bernie's privy to it too. He knew how much fuel was in the cars. Perhaps he's privy to it, I don't know, but maybe he knew something that the other competitors didn't. Namely, how much fuel is in the two Williams of Ralph Schumacher and Juan Montoya. They're lapping in the low 1:33s at the moment in this Grand Prix. Alonso on the same sort of pace in 4th place. Coulthard hasn't made a stop yet. He's also lapping at the same kind of pace at the moment. Kimi Raikkonen has rejoined in 6th place after his stop. Michael Schumacher has rejoined in 7th, still 8 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen.
Looking lonely out there for Ralph Schumacher at the moment. He's got a 6.3 second advantage over Montoya, who's not really had a great pace so far in the Grand Prix. He's held station. He's been there or thereabouts, but nothing like the sort of stunning pace we saw from him, and he pits, so Williams are not going that much further. You can assume Ralph will be in quite soon too. We've got to expect Coulthard in the pits, and normally the McLarens run with a pretty similar fuel level too, but Montoya not shown that stunning pace he had 2 weeks ago in Montreal. Nonetheless, he's still in the hunt for the afternoon. Alonso pits, Coulthard pits too, so currently 2nd, 3rd and 4th place men into the pit. There's the Renault of Alonso, a little front wing change. We saw that his pace wasn't as good as it may have been, and we haven't got a clock on Coulthard. Montoya's away, so is the Renault of Alonso, so they're pretty much leaving the pit absolutely as they arrived, in the same order, and a slightly tardy stop for Coulthard. Maybe they got a bit more fuel into that car, and look, he doesn't quite clear truly either, so Coulthard will be pleased to see the back of the front runners in terms of he's now coming into the hunt, but he'll be disappointed that didn't clear the Renault.
No, he will be disappointed with that. So Ron Dennis's prediction that nobody out there would be running more conservative than us, very much wrong. Kimi Raikkonen has made his stop. He was the first of the big guns to do so. He was not carrying more fuel than the rest of them. The man who's been carrying the fuel is Ralph Schumacher, and that makes his qualifying effort all the more creditable. 3rd place yesterday, just less than a 1/10 of a second slower than Raikkonen, considering how much more fuel he was carrying, and considering how much more fuel he was carrying than teammate Montoya. That was a stunning effort from Ralph Schumacher yesterday, and once again the man who was on pole for the 2 previous Grand Prix, hitting a bit of form now. He's certainly hit plenty of criticism, hasn't he, for not attempting to pass Michael Schumacher in Canada, for not being quick enough in Montreal around the time of the pit stops, losing the lead to his brother. People say he's not hungry, that he lacks desire, but he's showing today he's very hungry.
Yes, that must be a McLaren with that sponsor on the front. Michelin tyres going on, black overalls, clearly Coulthard's pit stop, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. And Ralph still didn't pit at the end of the previous lap, as you can clearly see. He's still on his way, and he's on lap 20. Raikkonen 21.3 seconds behind him. That's not enough to take the lead, is it? And nor should it be, really, because Raikkonen had about 8 seconds in his pocket. But Ralph lapping late 33s, and so is everybody else. So he's not, with low fuel at the moment, much lower fuel than the others. For some reason, he's not really taking the advantage he needs now, James.
No, he's not. He's only 21.3 seconds faster, ahead of Kimi Raikkonen on the racetrack. His stop must be imminent, and to come into the pits and rejoin ahead of the guy who was behind you safely here. On a two-stop strategy, you need something like about 25 seconds. So he's going to be closer than he was before the stops, but he's still going to rejoin behind Kimi Räikkönen when it all shakes out. Räikkönen up to second now.
Yes, interestingly, Michael Schumacher's 27 seconds behind Ralph, so Ralph should pop back into second place if he has a fault-free stop. So there's not going to be any key changes on... not going to be any key changes. Alonso's got ahead of Trulli, though, in their stop, so somewhere or another Trulli had a problem, and that's moved Alonso number 8 up to P6. Coulthard just behind the pair of them.
How many times have we seen that this season? It's just something about the races. Alonso just seems to push harder throughout the course of a stint, across the course of a Grand Prix than Jarno Trulli, who is often quicker on the single lap, but just perhaps can't keep the pace up to the same extent that Alonso can.
Seems to be the way, doesn't it? Seems to be the way. Did Ralf Schumacher pit? No, he did not pit. He's going into another lap, so he certainly is the man with the longest legs for the first stint this afternoon. There is his board, plus 21.7 seconds. He was 0.4 quicker than Räikkönen that time around, and now they're getting ready for him at the end of his lap 21. There's the race leader.
And that will mean he's carried 4 laps more fuel than Räikkönen did. And that really is a very good effort from Ralf Schumacher. You need about 3 kilos of fuel per lap, just under. So he was 12 kilos heavier than the McLaren on the start grid. And if you consider he was less than a tenth slower than him, that really does show you what a lap it was from Ralf yesterday.
Yeah, 12 kilos, did you say? What was that, about 4 and a bit tenths of penalty? So Ralf looking good then. Barrichello scything his way through the back. Marcus Heidfeld, who started from the pit lane, was running 10th. Has now pitted, so he's on a normal 2-stopper. Don't think there's a lot of point in carrying too much fuel around here. The penalty's too high. Ted?
Yes, I was watching David Coulthard's lap time just before Ralph stopped. It was 9 seconds worth of fuel time, so he'll be able to run longer than Alonso and Montoya. 8.5 seconds, the target about for Ralph's stop here. They're making a small adjustment to the front wing. New Michelin's on. There's no problem with the fuel. He's off. That's a good stop from Williams. 7 seconds, 7.7.
Yep, second Grand Prix in succession that the Williams stop has been very, very sharp indeed. He's racing against his brother here. There's the race leader, the new race leader, Kimi Räikkönen. There's Michael Schumacher in the background, and so Ralf Schumacher comfortably back out in front of his brother, and if anything, he's increased the margin by perhaps half to 3/4 of a second over the course of that stint. So Ralf really, this Grand Prix, making it count his strategy. Nastily balked there, though, it looked like, by Minardi. He is being balked.
Yeah, Wilson not really ready to yield, but he's rally crossing around the outside, and Ralf says, yeah, good luck to you, you're better off out there because I need to get on. He knows how crucial these outlaps are, and has lost him a second or two already, and it's so tight in Grand Prix this season. It's those sort of moments that can make a difference at the end of the final lap. Justin Wilson there getting well sideways, and Ralf, hey, what are you doing? To be fair to Justin, Ralf came out of the pit lane, probably out of view. Justin's in the middle of his own hard race with Verstappen and Fisichella and co, and he was just minding his own business. I'm sure he would have yielded down the next straight. As it happens, he didn't have to because Justin made a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, Villeneuve, we were looking at him before, lost his nose, as we know. He's still in last place and 14 seconds off the back of that Minardi battle. So here's the race leader once again after the first round of stops. Kimi Räikkönen coming through to complete lap 22. Ralf Schumacher is second. Michael Schumacher is third. Barrichello is fourth. Fifth is Montoya, and sixth at the moment, Fernando Alonso.
Welcome back to the Nürburgring, and as we await the return of the commentary from the circuit, Neil, we've seen the first decisive round of pit stops and a really smooth one for Ralf Schumacher. But how much fuel did he put on?
Well, he was in for 7.7 seconds, Bill, so not an enormous amount of fuel for that car, but he obviously had reasonable fuel in it for qualifying because he got it through to lap number 24 further than his brother. Michael, 8.6 seconds for his stop. Very efficient stop also for McLaren, 8.8 seconds and stopping on lap 16. I think the impressive thing here, Bill, is the great performance of the McLaren, and in particular Räikkönen, as we go on board with David Coulthard. Costly moment there also, just a lap or two back for Ralph when he came up onto the back of and got tangled up with Justin Wilson and gave him a little bit of what for on the way through. But as predicted, this is turning out to be real Michelin territory at the moment, and that was what everybody was suggesting. The tables were turned, however, on Friday afternoon in qualifying when the session was split in two, with dry for the first half and then wet for the second half. It was the Bridgestone runners that well and truly held sway, and in fact of those that were running on wet tyres, Heidfeld in particular was very, very strong. But it seems as though the weather's holding, and clearly at the moment the Michelin package is the one, and tyres they're all talking about over in Europe at the moment.
Once again, we'll get a clearer picture of this race after the second round of stops, where we'll see a similar situation. Driving for track position, trying to maximise that, and then a quick stop and get out in front of the guy who you were in front of before.
I think quite a few people were probably a little bit surprised by the fact that there are more people likely to be three-stopping. That is, unless they have a long fill on this potentially second stop now. But we're ready to go back to ITV with James and Martin and more of the questions to be answered.
Lap 24 at the Nürburgring. You're looking at David Coulthard in 8th place. Nothing's changed. You've missed nothing. And he is closing down on the back of Jarno Trulli, who is, well, the last lap he was fractionally quicker than David Coulthard, but certainly on this lap, Coulthard has closed him down. There's Jenson Button. He is down in 10th place at the moment. Olivier Panis is 11th and right on the back of the Englishman. Panis was 7th in the Toyota, which is where he started the race on the grid, but he had a spin and dropped down to 11th, which a painful mistake for him. On board then with Olivier Panis, chasing down Button.
Fastest man on the track still Kimi Raikkonen, but Ralf Schumacher's pegging him. The gap still 4.3 seconds. Right, the quick pit stop of Williams and the ins and outs of Ralf Schumacher, he halved the deficit and now has the young Finn certainly clearly, and he's actually be on the same straight most of the time, and it's race on. I think Michael Schumacher just beginning to slip back slightly from them. He's 9 seconds off the lead in 3rd place. Barrichello 5 seconds further behind him. Alonso, Trulli and Coulthard in very close company, lapping in the 1:34s. Here's the race leader. What are we going to see here as a replay? And that's just about perfect how you want to hit those bollards. Let's hope he didn't collect the next one with the wing. He didn't collect it at all, hardly. So you can bash it with the tyre, don't touch it with the nose. And remember, of course, behind the wheel you can't see the nose. You haven't really got a clue. It's like driving an E-Type Jag. You don't really quite know where the front of the car finishes.
Mr. Huppert there on the wall, the top man at Mercedes-Benz. Cristiano De Mata coming in for his second stop of the afternoon. So I don't know if this is scheduled or whether he's not happy with the balance of his second set of tyres. Bit of work going on there. Front right-hand corner, I should say. Nose change for Cristiano De Mata. Maybe he has tagged one of those bollards. Slick work though by the Toyota boys. Putting the new nose on, fuel and tyres in under 15 seconds. Don't cross that white line, Cristiano. No, he doesn't.
It looks like the nose is held on with Lego bricks or with Velcro or something. I've never seen. That was a tremendous nose change on that car. They've got a great system on that for a change of nose, and the front wing, of course, connected to that. And it's quite complex, that piece of carbon fibre and honeycomb, because that's where the crash test zone is, and a clever piece of kit, and it weighs virtually nothing. But usually, because it's so pivotal with the crash testing program, they have to be really bolted on. That's a great system they got on that Toyota.
Not to mention the amount of air, the downforce being generated by that front wing. It's a big, big load as the air passes down over it and pushes it down onto the track. Well, we found out this weekend how much one of those things is costs, because a number of the boys have knocked them off. As I said, Jenson Button knocked 3 off on Friday, and we found out that it's £20,000 each. And Raikkonen has blown up. I don't believe it. Out front, looking for his second Grand Prix of the season, and the left bank of Mercedes-Benz V10 cylinders has gone, and Kimi Raikkonen is out of the Grand Prix. What a terrible, terrible luck for him.
He'll be about as popular as a toothache if he keeps driving it on the line like that. He's losing fluid out of the left-hand side pod. Raikkonen clearly out of the race, not going to make it back to the pits, and what a shame. 4.8 seconds was his lead. Ralph certainly had him covered, but didn't have the ability to catch him, and Kimi Raikkonen, not a happy bunny, gets out of the car. And I know what it's like. You're sweaty, you're disappointed, and the marshals touch it. Even if they just touch you just feel you want to push everybody away from you. You don't want anybody in your personal space at that time. You just are so unhappy when your car fails like that.
Mario Ilian there, the engine builder from Mercedes. And here's a replay of what we all know is the inevitable big trail of telltale white smoke. And Kimi Raikkonen's Grand Prix is at an end. Talking about people jostling off marshals. Remember James Hunt actually punched one. Do you remember escorting him away from his car? James turned around and walloped him one, and Raikkonen dejected. The gloves go down. And that is a very, very bad afternoon for Kimi Raikkonen and for Mario Ilian. Certainly one of the theories behind maintaining this interim McLaren is the reliability. You can't afford not to finish Grand Prix with a new point system. And today, Raikkonen will take no points away from this race. At the moment, his chief championship rival, Michael Schumacher, is on for 8 points. That will extend his lead over Raikkonen to 11 in the World Championship. And the face says it all. Ted.
Yes, James, it was all very sudden. As watching the Mercedes engine stand with, as you say, Professor Hubert and Norbert Haug from Mercedes on their hands raised in the air. Very little advance notice of that. A real shame, because Raikkonen was hoping to close that gap of 3 points on Michael Schumacher. I think Michael Schumacher's still going to go ahead at the end of this race with the lead of the championship.
And the Schumacher brothers are pretty handy around here. They've always had strong runs. They know the track well. And that is Ralph Furman on the rev limiter, coasting into the pits. Always seems so slow, doesn't it? The crew are ready for him, so it seems as if it's a scheduled stop. It is indeed. They know the Jordans will be on 3 stoppers this afternoon. Furman was down in 16th, and that's a tidy 7.9 second attempt.
Yeah, it's not proving to be the right strategy for Jordan either way. He is now down in 16th place, and he's rejoined, I think, in front of the Wilson, Verstappen, Villeneuve situation. No, he hasn't. Yes, he has.
That puts a whole new emphasis on the Button Panis fight. Button up to 8th now. Panis just 3/10 behind him. They're having a real ding-dong there. And now suddenly it's for a World Championship point.
Good effort from Jenson Button. Started 12th on the grid. He's had one car, obviously, the Ferrari retiring in front of him, the McLaren retiring in front of him. And Panis had that spin, that gave him another place, but Button has gained 4 slots then, as we take another look at that left bank letting go.
At the end of the straight, top gear, maximum load, full throttle, a lot of downforce, a lot of energy going through there, and Shuey's right-hand man seemed remarkably unhappy about it, didn't he, surprisingly?
Yes, Balbir Singh there, Kimi Raikkonen running back. Balbir Singh is, as you say, Shuey's right-hand man, does all his physio, his training, and a bit of a spiritual advisor as well. And he speaks fluent German. He's been with Michael for as long as I can remember. Into the pits then comes the second of the 2 Jordans on its 3-stop strategy. Teammate Furman 16th, Fisichella was 15th, but unless this is a remarkably quick lap or he's had a very quick in-lap, he's likely to rejoin behind his teammate once again in a frustrating afternoon. There is Furman. It's going to be touch and go, actually, this. I think he's in front of him. So he has had a very good in-lap, has Fisichella.
Yeah, it's the next scrap to watch. Jordans are down there in sort of 15th, 16th zone. The next scrap to watch, though, is Montoya's catching Barrichello for 3rd and 4th. It's Michael Schumacher, he's 2nd, he's 3.6 behind, and it's yo-yoing around in terms of pace. Gains a 10th, loses a 10th, and there that's 3.6 on the racetrack as Michael's coming down the hill. Already Ralph at the apex of the Dunlop curve. Barrichello just 1.1 ahead of Montoya now, just behind this fight. They're 5 seconds behind this battle between the 2 Schumachers.
Well, it's very interesting because although they pitted 4 laps apart, Michael Schumacher was stationary for, I believe, 9.6 seconds. Ralf Schumacher was stationary for just over 7 seconds. So fuel-wise, they may well have a similar amount in. We'll try and work that out. Kimi Raikkonen's just working out what he's got to do to get a break in this season. He's out then on lap 29. Ralf Schumacher leads, as it was 2 weeks ago in Montreal. A battle between the 2 Schumacher brothers. Michael's 2nd, Barrichello is 3rd, Montoya is 4th, Alonso 5th, 6th is Trulli, 7th Coulthard, and the last of the points positions at the moment, Jenson Button in 8th.
Great shame for the championship, Neil Crompton. That's happened to Kimi Raikkonen, and the pole sitter jinx continues. Only one pole starter has won here in the 10 races at the shortened Nürburgring, and that was Schumacher back in 2001. Kimi Raikkonen really needed a good result here this weekend, but there's a long way to go in the championship. We hope he can find that consistency. Certainly Ferrari has the consistency.
Yes, and it comes on the back of a difficult week for McLaren with the problems with the FIA crash test with the MP418, then the summer testing ban. But off the back of a string of good results for Kimi, when he got back into the points in Canada in 6th place after coming off the back of the grid, and only the second time this year that he has DNF, the accident in Spain, and now what is apparently an engine failure for him. Interesting, just a few laps ago also there, Billy, that looked to me as though they've long-filled Cristiano Di Marta, and they put in about 14.8 seconds worth of fuel, so she's a real tractor at the moment. It's going to be very, very heavy. There's a pile of fuel in it, and I think you may find, in fact, some people actually go for a longer fill now on the second stop. They've opted for the short sprint strategy in the initial phase, and then perhaps will opt for some more fuel the second time around. Look at these bollards that we're talking about before, and there's plenty of blokes nailing those. Jacques Villeneuve unsuccessfully so when he broke the front wing off his car.
Yeah, the secret is to hit him with your wheel and not your wing, as Jacques discovered.
And not that easy sometimes when you're blinded by the preceding car, and as Martin quite rightly pointed out, quite difficult to sight the apex on occasions depending on the radius shape of the corner and where the other cars are. You can actually end up just mistiming it ever so gently because the wheel actually obscures your target point.
Riding with Montoya here. Time to cross back to Martin and James.
At the halfway stage then of the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, we've lost Kimi Raikkonen about 5 or 6 minutes ago. Engine blow up there for the McLaren Mercedes driver. That meant that Ralf Schumacher took over the lead. This is his teammate Juan Montoya we ride on board with now. He's in 4th place. Michael Schumacher is just 3.5 seconds behind his brother in 2nd place. Barrichello's 3rd, 6 seconds behind. Montoya, as we say, 4th. Alonso 5th. 10 seconds behind the Williams of Montoya. Trulli is shadowing his teammate in 6th place, and David Coulthard is shadowing both of the Renaults down in 7th. Jenson Button a long way behind them, 34 seconds to be precise, behind David Coulthard in 8th place.
Michael Schumacher's been whinging about the new point system. He feels he's won more races and still doesn't have the clear advantage to go with those race wins. I think he'll change his tune now. Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix, and of course, as it works out now, it's 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. To pull back a deficit is harder. To build a deficit is hard, but to haul it back, and I think it'll now start playing into Michael's hands at this stage.
Well, very much so. As you can see, the Renaults there getting mixed up in the Jordan of Ralph Furman. The strategy for Jordan not working out today. They're being lapped then by the 5th and 6th place cars at the moment. Alonso still struggling to keep that car on the island. He's been jiggling the steering wheel throughout the race. Car obviously a pig to drive today, but nevertheless he's managed to get himself in front of Trulli, who's having a bit of a problem getting round the side of Ralph Furman. Coulthard will have a go in a minute, and it's like a car park out there at the moment as they work their way through the lap traffic. Yeah, I mean, as you say, Martin, the point system works to your advantage if you're reliable and consistent. Michael Schumacher's only had one non-finish this year, and that was when he dropped it in Brazil in the rain at that infamous corner that claimed so many victims. Kimi Raikkonen didn't score any points in Spain, and he's not scoring any points here today. That's 2 non-scores, and that begins to open up the margin in the championship in Michael's favour. 11 points as it stands at the moment then. Frentzen in for his 2nd stop of 3, we believe, this afternoon on his 3-stop strategy. He was in 11th place before he came in.
Lead has just gone through. Here comes Michael Schumacher. He will clear. And that's a bit bizarre, isn't it? It often is, to keep the fans off the racetrack at the end of the Grand Prix. It often keeps the drivers away too. Raikkonen parked on the outside of the track, so he's had to, he's been working some time now, hasn't he, to find a way back to the pits, where he'll be debriefing heavily and telling even though he didn't finish the race, they'll spend a long time downloading comments, feelings and data, and understanding what was good, what was bad. And even though they really did appear to have enough speed to win this Grand Prix today, they'll always be looking for something better. All the teams will be the same. So Raikkonen still with a lot of work to do this afternoon.
Yeah, indeed he has. The marshal there perhaps suggesting Raikkonen might like to put his helmet on for the ride back to the pits. Raikkonen suggesting the marshal might like to just get on with riding the cycle and leave him alone. Not in the mood for talking, and you can't blame him. Lap 33, nice rearward shot then from Barrichello. 1.3 seconds is the gap. You can see it for yourself between him and Montoya. And as Martin was saying, that's the developing scrap here on the racetrack. The last lap times almost identical. This is how it looks from Montoya in 4th place. And his pace, unlike Canada 2 weeks ago, where he was around about 0.3 of a second faster than his teammate, certainly in the closing stage of the Grand Prix. Today, you can't say that. Ralph has the edge over teammate Montoya. A rather contrite Norbert Haug, big contrast to the way he was yesterday after qualifying, after Raikkonen stuck it on pole. He was banging on the desk of that Mercedes desk like some character from the Jungle Book. But today, a much more somber mood there, and who can blame him? A big and rather embarrassing blow-up for Mercedes in front of all their big brass here.
But that's motorsport, it's sport, it's what we love about it. It's the peaks and the troughs, the glory, the misery. You have to go through all of those emotions, and as you said, Norbert Haug's had both in 2 days. Ralf Schumacher's stretched the lead to 4.1 seconds now, and again Montoya looking pretty feisty as well there in 4th place. So the Williams definitely working better in this stage, at this stage of the Grand Prix, James. But I've said it before this year, and I'll say it again. The reliability of these cars is astounding this year. 19 runners. Only Raikkonen has dropped out of the Grand Prix with that engine problem. And of course, they have to lock the things away until a quarter of an hour before the race starts. They can't change them. They used to pull them apart, spend hours, spend all night looking at the cars, go out in the warm-up, pull them apart again. And we thought, I certainly thought, with the park firmware regulations where they just couldn't touch the car, we were going to see all sorts of dramas and disappointments with reliability. And they've been more reliable, if anything.
Interesting there, seeing Ralph for the second time just nibbling a bit out of that bollard at the chicane, the second part of the chicane, the inner bollard. They've been chipping away at it, and obviously more and more people cutting it with their wheels rather than the front wing, just getting it down, and that will increase the speed through the chicane. Certainly all the drivers said when they turned up here on Thursday and had a look at that chicane with those changes that they would make everyone very cautious during the race. So far, only Villeneuve has come a cropper, hitting it with his front wing during the race and having to pit for a new nose. And nobody else so far making that mistake.
Must be starting to home in on the second pit stops. We expected them to run a little bit longer in this second phase of the Grand Prix. All the key players on 2 stoppers. There's Michael. The gap is 4.2 seconds now. It's really nothing between these 2 cars. Different tyres, different cars, brothers driving them, and they're absolutely identical on their lap times, lap after lap. Nobody can break the status quo. Nobody making mistakes at this stage. Will anybody serve a double fault this afternoon? Certainly the 2 Schumi boys look well enough under control for that, and Renault really they're pretty close together too, as you can see. They're 14 seconds behind Montoya, the 4th place man. And look, now the gaps have come up on the TV. You can see it for yourself, and Coulthard just behind them. There's Coulthard now.
But I have to point out that the pace of the 2 Schumacher brothers is considerably better than that of the other drivers in the same car. Barrichello and Montoya lapping in the low to mid 1:33. Ralf Schumacher 1:32.8 the last lap. Michael Schumacher 1:32.9. Nothing to choose between them, but it's still 6 or 7 tenths of a second a lap faster than their teammates in identical cars. Why? Because they're pushing. We reckon, given the nozzle time from the first stops and when they actually made their stops, that Michael Schumacher will pit again on lap 38 and Ralf Schumacher will pit on lap 39. If that information is accurate, and we've been working it out up here with pencils and not calculators, but hopefully that should give us quite an interesting tussle in about 3 or 4 laps time when the second round of pit stops comes. Michael Schumacher, can he do something about his brother? 4.6 seconds at the moment, the margin between the 2 of them.
And we think Coulthard probably fueled longer than the 2 Renaults. So he's got to be right on their tails. If he's going to leapfrog them in this final pit stop, he's got to be right with them. And at the moment, he's a second, 0.6 behind, and falling away slightly actually too. So Coulthard's really got to pump some hot laps in now if he wants to get up to 5th place this afternoon.
Yeah, he's got about 3 or 4 laps, maybe more, of fuel. Here's Ferrari getting ready again for a stop. First time round, it was Schumacher who came in before Barrichello by a lap. What's the story going to be here, I wonder? There's one of the 2 Ferraris. It's Michael Schumacher, and he pits from second place. So lap 36, a couple of laps out from our calculations, but nevertheless, here he is into the pits.
Yes, nobody really knows exactly when that nozzle goes on and when the fuel starts to flow, but everybody's ready for him. The second and final scheduled stop of the afternoon. New tyres, more fuel than at any other time in this Grand Prix, and that's why it's a 10-second. In fact, he was away before that stopwatch was clicked off. But of course, we're 37 laps into a 60-lap race, so he's clearly got to put and carry more fuel than at any other time, and he's got a bit of traffic ahead of him. He's coming out just behind the Coulthard 2 Renault scrap ahead of him there now, and that's for track position, so they're not going to yield. He's not going to have the advantage of blue flags waving, even if he's got more speed with that heavier fuel load at this stage. But of course we know that Coulthard, the 2 Renaults will be pitting, but I don't think for 2 or 3 laps yet, so Michael Schumacher will be slightly disappointed to see that little entourage in front of him.
No, Coulthard won't be pitting for a while actually. Came in on lap 19 and took in considerably more fuel than Michael Schumacher did, who came in 2 laps earlier than him, so that's not at all what Michael had in mind. The pace of Coulthard, as we were saying before, and the 2 Renaults in front of him, pretty much a second off the sort of pace that Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher were putting in before that second round of pit stops. So this is going to play very much into Ralf Schumacher's hands here as Panis comes in for his second stop of the afternoon. Was 10th. This will probably drop him behind Pitsonia down to, and maybe Heidfeld and possibly De Matter as well, down to 13th place. Into the pits then, the second of the 2 Ferraris, Rubens Barrichello from 4th.
And we can see out of the window here, I can see McLaren ready too, which can only of course be for David Coulthard with Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix. So Coulthard stopping earlier than we expected. Here goes the 2 Renaults, and goes Coulthard past the commentary box here, so he didn't pit, and the McLaren mechanics move away. So maybe they're just trying to dupe somebody in the pit lane, but Coulthard not pitting. The McLaren mechanics were definitely there though.
Yeah, they were definitely there. Maybe they're trying to make Renault think they were doing something different. The battles then between Trulli and Alonso and Coulthard trying to get in front of those 2. It'll make a huge difference to his payday in terms of points. And the other great scrap to watch out for is Barrichello, who's just pitted, and Montoya, who will pit in a few laps' time. Montoya trying to get past Rubens Barrichello in this Grand Prix and get 3rd place. Ted, what can you tell us?
There's certainly a bit of psychology going on there. Renault were looking quizzically at McLaren when they came out, and then there was a little play between a couple of mechanics, a couple of thumbs up, a couple of funny looks. Renault are out now. I can only assume David Coulthard may have had some problem on the current set of tyres that he's on, but he's elected to go further as he can into this race. Renault ready now.
Yes, and Coulthard's now within a second of the Renaults, but we've lost. That's Alonso, isn't it? No, it's Trulli. He's got the look at the yellow band on the camera. That is Jarno Trulli at a crucial part of the Grand Prix, and Trulli out then. So all falling apart for Renault. Coulthard just a second and a half behind them, and Panis off the road in turn 1 for the second time this afternoon. And has he got a box full of neutrals, or has he lost the engine?
Well, it's certainly not going anywhere, is it? That retirement for Jarno Trulli, his 3rd of this season. His teammate Alonso has only failed to finish once. They have had tremendous reliability, the Renault team. Panis, however, he's had a very frustrating time. He's actually only had seen the checkered flag 3 times this season so far. Very frustrating for him. Alonso into the pits though, and this is what David Coulthard wanted. Hopefully he can jump this Renault and get himself further up into the points-paying positions after a disappointing qualifying.
Now Coulthard's got to go. If we're right and he's got another 2 or 3 laps of fuel on board, he's got to find 2 to 3 seconds in that time. There'll be yellow flags waving down at turn 1, double yellows waving actually, because there are men on the track. And this is Panis locking that right front wheel for the second time this afternoon, and it's virtually a carbon copy. That could almost be a replay, excepting he doesn't get away this time.
Well, the good news for Ralf Schumacher is that his brother, behind David Coulthard on the road, is lapping almost a second a lap slower than he is now. And the margin between the two of them, 34.4 seconds, more than enough time for Ralf to be able to come in for his second stop and rejoin comfortably in the lead. Bernie Ecclestone told you on the grid he fancied the Williams today, and he's a smart man, isn't he?
Well, Bernie's not often wrong, but he looks like he could be right again. Ralf with a comfortable lead then, because Michael really is behind Coulthard. Alonso's now pitted, but Michael's pace is not that hot either. He's not really exactly all over the back of that McLaren. A bit of turbulent air to contend with as well. Maybe, just maybe, Michael's thinking, right, Raikkonen's out of the Grand Prix. I haven't got the pace to catch Ralf, let alone pass him. I'll take the 8 points this afternoon, because Williams then ready. That could be for either of them.
Well, in the position he's in at the moment, Michael Schumacher, percentage driving does come into the equation. He needs all the points, obviously, that he can get, but he knows he's in a tough fight for the championship, and he knows that it's not just McLaren but Williams as well that are going to play a strong part in the run into the final Grand Prix of this season in October in Suzuka. Almost everybody in Formula One expecting this year's championship to go down to the wire. And as you say, Martin, 8 points for second place here today would give him an 11-point margin over Raikkonen. Going to France next weekend, Magny-Cours. Next Sunday, there's only a 1 week gap between these two Grand Prix. It's the most intense period of the Formula One season, with our home Grand Prix at Silverstone just 2 weeks later. Looking forward to that very much. Into the pits then comes Montoya.
Was second, 14.8 seconds behind his teammate. Ralf still the only man now lapping in the 1:32s is Ralf Schumacher. Everybody else 33s, and most of them 34s and 35s. So Ralf Schumacher really is in the zone at this stage of the Grand Prix, building himself, I would imagine, an unassailable lead. Can Montoya do? Can he get anywhere near Barrichello and Michael Schumacher? He surely's got a chance to get past Barrichello if this stop and the rest of the afternoon works out well. Barrichello's had his second stop. Where is he? He's just coming into view, I think. I think we heard him go past the commentary box. Has Montoya got ahead of the second Ferrari? There's one Ferrari, there's the second one. Yes, it's worked.
So exactly as we were looking at it, Rubens Barrichello has dropped down into fourth place behind Juan Montoya, fifth place, I beg your pardon, behind Juan Montoya as a result of that second round of pit stops. So his strategy working very well then for the Williams team. For once, Ross Brawn and his team of technicians, Luca Baldessari, also working behind the scenes there on strategy for Ferrari. He got it wrong in Monaco, and certainly as far as Barrichello is concerned, they got it wrong here today as well. Here's your race leader then, into the pits, lap 41 of 60, 19 to go then. And Ted, take it away.
Well, what a fantastic race Ralf Schumacher has run here. It's brilliant. He comes into his pit box, hits the marks, no problems with the stop so far. The fuel goes in. This was the acid test, this track, for Williams. Success, of course, in Monaco. Disappointment in Canada, but they really seem to have race-winning pace here. Good stop again for Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ted. All of the Williams team said Nürburgring will be the real test for us. If our car works here, it'll be good for the rest of the season.
Michael Schumacher's still turning into the final corner, and Ralph's cleared the pit lane. He's at least the entire pit straight ahead. David Coulthard's up in second because he's yet to make his second stop of the afternoon. But we've got to watch where Coulthard and Alonso end up after Coulthard has had his stop. Alonso's already finished his. A man on a mission is Montoya on his outlap, has set the fastest second and third sectors of anybody this afternoon on his outlap. He's gunning, now he's cleared one Ferrari, he's gunning for the other. And Schumacher's had a poor sector, look, there it is. Schumacher's not got pace. He's fallen away from the back of Coulthard. We thought he might be getting held up in that Renault McLaren scrap. Indeed, he's actually fallen away, running a bit wide through the Ford chicane there too. So Schumacher, Michael, coming under pressure from Montoya, who's now blitzed the fastest first sector of anybody on his first full flying lap after that stop.
It's interesting, isn't it? This third set of tyres for Michael Schumacher just doesn't seem to be working for him. He's only had them on the car for 6 or 7 laps, and as you say, he is falling into the clutches of Montoya, who has now set the fastest first sector as well, just to fill in the gap. So he is now 2 seconds behind Michael Schumacher and attacking him very hard indeed. He senses that the Ferrari driver is vulnerable. He wants to get more points than just a mere third place, and this is great in the closing stages. 18 to go here at the Nürburgring, and we're, I think, hopefully looking at the sharp end of a Montoya Michael Schumacher scrap. We've had a few tasty ones of those over the last few years, haven't we?
Yes, Williams should have had a 1-2 as Coulthard pits. Williams should have had a 1-2 in Canada, and somehow they managed to give it away to Michael, ended up with a 2-3. I think they might just reverse the tables this afternoon and pull this one out of the bag. Left rear's on. Coulthard starts to pull away, but it's he was going away too early. Went away too early there, cost himself another 2 or 3 seconds. That could well be the difference between clearing Alonso or not. Alonso's past the commentary box. He will not pass Alonso, and that little drama there with the refueling has cost Coulthard the chance. And Louise is with Kimi Räikkönen.
That's right. I can't remember the last time we waited until lap 26 for a car to retire. Sadly, it was race leader Kimi Räikkönen that's gone out. Kimi, the team said they had no warning. Did you have any idea that was going to happen?
No, just when it was completely fine.
Louise, I have to jump in. I'm sorry, because Michael Schumacher has spun off. He was side by side with Juan Montoya, and the two made contact down at the Dunlop hairpin, and Michael Schumacher's looking for some sort of assistance from the marshals. He won't be able to. Well, he wants a push. His rear wheels are still spinning. He's kept the engine in. He can't have a push, can he?
No, he'll be disqualified unless they deem him in a dangerous position, but he's beached. They won't push him off there. Kimi Räikkönen will want to be rushing away from that interview and having a look at that, because that makes an enormous difference to the World Championship in 2003. They have managed, enough of them came out there. Is he allowed to do that? Better be digging the rule book out. But unless it's deemed to be in a dangerous position, you're not allowed to receive outside help, and it's pushed Michael Schumacher way down the field. And I don't really know how Michael let that happen. Montoya had the outside line. Here we see Montoya getting a good run out of Ford chicane. Michael inevitably having to go defensive on the inside, and so Montoya says, no problem, I'll have a go down the outside. Squeezes Michael in, they touch, and how Michael spun and Juan Pablo didn't, I have no idea. It's the Williams that should be gyrating, not the Ferrari. And somehow or other, Michael just went too cautious in there, and it worked out luckily but beautifully for Juan Pablo Montoya. Here it is from another angle. So Michael's got the racing line and just gets it all sideways.
Well, 9 times out of 10, as you said, the car on the outside is the one who spins gently around. The Ferrari mechanics reacting, as you can see in the pits. They can't quite believe this. Any suggestion to you that the race stewards need to look at this from Montoya's point of view? Any suggestion he might get any kind of penalty for this, or is it a racing incident?
No, it's absolutely fine. What Montoya's done is fine. He squeezed him, but he left him enough space. And Michael has allowed himself to, his focus went from his car to Montoya's car, and he spun off. There's nothing wrong there from Montoya.
I'm happy you said that. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. I think you're absolutely right. And, well, they're packing away the pit board. Oh, they're not actually. They're continuing to give signals. So they obviously feel that Michael Schumacher is eligible to continue despite his push. We're checking through the rule book at the moment to see what we can find out about it. We'll have an answer for you very, very shortly. What drama here then at the Nürburgring. It's Formula One for you. Just when you think things are stabilising, you get the race leader Räikkönen having an engine blow up. And as we're talking to him live on F1 ITV, and I'm sorry to Louise for cutting across her there, but Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya in a scrap for second place. Look at Coulthard, almost nerfs the back of Alonso, getting very, very close to the back of the Renault there, David Coulthard. It was only a bit of smoky tyre braking that kept him out of it. Alonso seems to be struggling here, Martin.
Does indeed, struggling under braking. Coulthard looking like he's got plenty of extra pace, doesn't he? They're, of course, ahead of Michael Schumacher now, so that's for 4th and 5th. Mark Webber's moved up to 7th. Button is 8th for the top 8-point scorers. But now Coulthard getting feisty over a potential 4th place. They're 18 seconds behind third place man Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher leads from Montoya. It is a Williams 1-2 at this time, and that's thanks to Montoya's bravery around the outside of the Dunlop curve.
Let's have a listen then to David Coulthard's engine as he cutting away from it, but as he attacks Alonso. This is the battle for fourth place. Barrichello is up the road 18 seconds, so Coulthard probably doesn't have a chance of catching him in the Grand Prix for a podium, but still fourth place is better than fifth when you started ninth on the grid, as David Coulthard did. Very strong drive once again from the Scotsman. Let's listen to him.
And where he's got to be close is out of this next right-hander, because he's got more straight line speed than the Renault, and he's clearly faster under braking. So if he can get closer than that, has to be said, he's got a chance of overtaking the Renault into this next little NGK chicane, and that is where he's going to make the move when he makes it, if he makes it. Ralf Schumacher with a 16.7 second lead then over Montoya. Barrichello 9.5 seconds behind them, and this battle 18 seconds further behind Alonso Coulthard. Michael Schumacher catching them about a second to a second and a half per lap, but he's 17 after that little drama in the gravel trap. He's 17 seconds behind him, and Coulthard running well wide into turn one. Alonso struggling under braking, and this was the pit stop of Coulthard. Don't really understand why he took off after 6.4 seconds. Either he misread the lollipop, and up goes the lollipop. It's a clear getaway then, but there was a bit of a false start before that, where David would look like he was ready to go, and Michael Schumacher then is in the gravel trap. And we're looking at Rule 150. If a car stops during the race, it must be removed from the track as quickly as possible, so that his presence does not constitute a danger or hinder other competitors. If the driver is unable to drive the car from a dangerous position, it shall be the duty of the marshals to assist him. If any such assistance results in the engine starting and the driver rejoining the race, the car will be excluded from the results of the race. Well, the engine wasn't restarted, no, exactly. But it was marshal assistance. So there's a nice grey regulation. We'll have a look at some more and see if we can get another clue on that one.
Absolutely. Michael Schumacher definitely kept the engine in, because he could see the rear wheel spinning in the gravel when he was calling for the push. Now, they're pretty hot on the rules. Obviously, every team has at least one man whose job it is to know this book that Martin's referring to, the sporting regulations issued by the FIA. It's his job to know every word of those rules intimately, and they make decisions on the wall. Remember Ferrari at Silverstone when they had a stop-and-go penalty? They brought Michael Schumacher in after the checkered flag lap, and they argued the toss afterwards. It's about knowing the rules. Stefano Domenicali is the man at Ferrari whose job it is to know the rules, and he's obviously he's pretty confident of his ground at the moment, because Michael Schumacher is still in this race. Lap 47, Ralf leaves by 16.7 seconds from Montoya. Barrichello third, fourth Alonso, fifth Coulthard, but I sense a change afoot there for fourth place, and sixth is Michael Schumacher.
Welcome back, and what looked like a pretty much regulation finish to this race, and a victory to Ralf Schumacher has become a lot more interesting for what's been going on behind him. Now, Neil, this is a critical outcome in terms of the championship points, and I'm sure Kimi Raikkonen is sweating on this as much as every fan.
Well, temporarily it certainly would have energised everybody at McLaren to wonder what may have been the outcome to Michael going off in that touch with Montoya. But the significant thing is, in that situation where he was buried temporarily on the gravel and the bottom of the car was stranded on the top of the ripple strip, is that he kept the engine running. And just going back to, as we look at the bollard there at the apex of that chicane, that's well and truly ripped in half, a little bit like the one we had in Adelaide, the Clipsal 500 a couple of months ago. But the significant point in the situation in terms of clarifying the legality of whether or not Michael could continue is Article 151 in the Formula One sporting regulations. If a car stops during the race, it must be removed from the track as quickly as possible so that its presence does not constitute a danger or hinder other competitors. If the driver is unable to drive the car from a dangerous position, it shall be the duty of the marshals to assist him. If any such assistance results in the engine starting and the driver rejoining the race, the car will be excluded from the results of the race. And clearly the engine was running, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. Incidentally, Mark Webber is 7th and in the points, which is fantastic news. In fact, has picked up his lap pace with a full load of fuel on and so he's on target at the moment to get back in the game and score more valuable points for himself and for Jaguar and Michelin.
Another tradesman-like performance there from Webber as we get set to rejoin Martin and James. You're looking at the battle for fourth. Solid drive from Coulthard as well under the circumstances. But your race leader is still, and by a long way, Ralf Schumacher will return now to the Nürburgring.
Lap 49 of what had been a rather static and in the last few minutes has become a rather exhilarating European Grand Prix. You've missed nothing while you're away. David Coulthard is closing down once again on the back of Fernando Alonso in the battle for fourth place. He lost a little bit of ground going deep on the brakes a couple of laps back. He's yet to really make that ground up, but you can see now he's just starting to edge closer. The Renault not enjoying the afternoon at all. Alonso struggling with the handling. At the front, Ralf Schumacher still leads by just under 20 seconds from teammate Juan Montoya, who put a spirited move on Michael Schumacher to try and take second place away from the Ferrari driver. They were side by side down into the hairpin. Schumacher on the inside, Montoya on the outside, and Schumacher spun and had to get a push restart. We're still looking into exactly what the ramifications of that going to be. Martin read us the rule a few minutes ago, but it is slightly vague, and we wait to see what the story is. Haven't seen any suggestion that the stewards want to talk to the Ferrari driver or any flags, so they're obviously happy that under the wording of that rule, because his engine perhaps was still running when he received the push, Michael Schumacher is allowed to continue in this race. Barrichello's third, Alonso fourth with Coulthard fifth, as we said. Michael Schumacher rejoined sixth after that spin, and he is just in front of Mark Webber in the Jaguar. We've not seen him all afternoon apart from an early pit stop. He's doing a great job once again for Jaguar in seventh place, with Jenson Button in the final points position in eighth.
Alonso, sorry James, Alonso went in too deep. He's definitely struggling under braking. Coulthard couldn't punish him for it on that occasion, but Alonso getting himself way deep into the NGK chicane and managed to hold the inside line there. So still the scrap goes on for fourth place. Coulthard now knows he's got a way better car under braking, and Alonso's going to have to go defensive in any braking zone while he can see that red patch on the nose of the McLaren. Here we go again. Look, he's just gone in too deep. Knows he wants to go round the corner, otherwise he could get penalised. Coulthard's so close to losing his right front. We're on board with Coulthard. He's going to try and make hay while the sun shines there and almost loses his right front in the middle of it. Got onto the outside dirty part and then couldn't get traction on the way out of the corner. Alonso breathed a sigh of relief. Nearly contact there between the McLaren and the Renault, but the race goes on.
Indeed it does. Renault mechanics keeping a watchful brief. The pace at the front of Ralf Schumacher and Juan Montoya. They are the fastest two cars on the track at the moment. They're lapping in the low 1 minute 34s, which is about a second off the pace of earlier on when the intense battle between Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher was underway. So I think BMW Williams feel they've got this race pretty much under control at the moment. It's just really a question of what Coulthard can do about Alonso, and 14 seconds behind Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, what he can do about the McLaren and the Renault. But the way he's going at the moment, it's going to be difficult for him to close down on them in the last 9 laps.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, the regulation says if the engine restarts, which it didn't, he was in a dangerous position because he's in the heart of the braking zone for a heavy stop into the hairpin. I think he should be excluded in many respects, because you cannot entice. It took 5 or 6 men to get that car. It was Beach, wasn't it? Sitting on its under tray, and you don't want to create circumstances where somebody like Michael Schumacher can beckon on and bring a lot of people into what is a dangerous zone, even if it's covered under double waved yellows. But the regulation is not clear. It doesn't absolutely say he will be excluded. Ferrari will say he was assisted away from a dangerous position and the engine did not restart. It was already running. Ted.
Yes, Martin, the view down here at McLaren and Williams is that it's about the interpretation of dangerous position. Now, do you think that Michael Schumacher was in a dangerous position? Well, he was at the outside of the corner, so if someone goes in there, they could have clomped into him, so that's dangerous enough. Ferrari's Stefano Domenicali has been in constant contact with race control via the radio link from the pit wall. The fact that nothing's happened here says that they have got away with that. It is suitably vague, as you say, but, well, that's the way they like it sometimes.
Yes, indeed. But we'll wait and see what happens yet. There's plenty of time still if they decide. They can be sitting and discussing that one for 20 minutes if they want before they have to make a decision. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher is cruising along, not very fast, it has to be said. He's not under pressure from behind by 7th place man Webber. He's nowhere near the Coulthard-Alonso fight, so he's just pacing along in the 134s, probably wondering himself if he's going to keep that 6th place at the end of the afternoon.
Yep, 3 points at stake here for Michael Schumacher. If he's able to stay where he is, he's 13.8 seconds off the Coulthard-Alonso scrap now, so he is closing in on it at about 3 or 4 tenths of a second a lap, but that's not really enough with just 9 laps to go in this Grand Prix to actually do anything about passing Coulthard and picking up more points.
We saw the tail end, I think, of Coulthard having another go down into turn 1. We didn't see the action. We are about to see the action, and look, Coulthard carrying a lot more speed in, or if he doesn't run into the back of Alonso, he'll pass him or run into the back of him the way he's going at the moment. I'm not sure which. Alonso really covering his bases early, getting the car turned into the corner and blocking off the apex. So time running out for David Coulthard then to snatch that 4th place. Ralf Schumacher leading this man, Montoya, by 18.7 seconds. Barrichello, barely spoken about Barrichello, have we? He's now lapping 136. He's lost another 3 seconds, so has Barrichello got a bit of a drama in there somewhere? He's in a very comfortable 3rd place, but miles off the pace of these leading Williams.
Quite a bit at stake then on the decision of the stewards, etc., regarding the Michael Schumacher push situation. Going into the French Grand Prix next Sunday, if Michael's allowed to collect his 6th place, which he looks on target for at the moment, he would be on 57 World Championship points to Kimi Raikkonen's 51. If he were not able to keep those points, he would be on 54 versus 51. As we enter the second half of the World Championship, it's close enough, 6 points, but still a bit of a breathing space with 10 points for a win, 8 points for second place as it is now. Magny-Cours expected to be very much a Michelin track. Raikkonen very strong there last year, Williams very strong. So Michael Schumacher could do with the extra 3 points really going into Magny-Cours, couldn't he?
Certainly could. I think that was a pivotal point of this year's World Championship. Michael not punishing to the maximum effect the McLaren engine failure today, and Coulthard looking ever closer now, and we know he's been quick under braking down into the hairpin. He'll have to go around the outside as Montoya did if he wants to take the place, because Alonso driving very, very sensibly indeed in terms of making his car feel as much important track as possible on the way into the corners. Good fight then from Alonso and Coulthard.
Yes, it's going to be interesting, isn't it, the decision of McLaren. There's a lot of talk this weekend about the new car. The MP418 suffered yet another accident in the hands of Alex Wurz in testing. That's the 2nd major accident it's had. Obviously the McLaren team very happy with the pace of their car. Kimi Raikkonen getting pole here this weekend with it. Nothing wrong with its speed, as we saw in the early part of this Grand Prix. So no real rush to get the MP418 out onto the track. They had talked about Silverstone as a possible start date. I think that accident of Wurz's has set back the programme sufficiently to mean that it'll have to be a later date. And of course we've got a testing ban throughout the summer recess in August, so they won't be able to test the car until after the Hungarian Grand Prix at the back end of August, which would suggest that the earliest we'll see it now is probably either Hungary or Monza. Villeneuve out of the Grand Prix. He was in 15th place, and they're giving us a button caption, but I can assure you that is definitely Jacques Villeneuve there. Oh, there we are, off the racetrack. So, at the end of this lap, there'll be 6 to go at the Nürburgring. Ralf Schumacher comfortably in front, Montoya 2nd, Barrichello 3rd, Alonso 4th, Coulthard 5th, still right at the back of the Renault. Lot to come. Here's that battle there from those two before the end of this Grand Prix, I fancy. Michael Schumacher 6th, Webber going very well in 7th, Button 8th.
Well, we still wait for what will be a very interesting postscript to this race, and that is confirmation of the Michael Schumacher situation. There's no doubt at all, unless there is a Raikkonen-style blow-up, that Ralf Schumacher will take this victory and maintain a very consistent record this season in the championship now.
Yes, it's been an extraordinary performance from him so far. If he does continue on target at the moment, he will continue to complete a trouble-free run in the championship so far with virtually 9 rounds down. In the points in every one, an unbroken record, an amazing performance in terms of reliability. Crunch some numbers, Billy, just to see what it all looks like, assuming that things stay the way they are at the moment. And Michael, but there's going to be some conjecture over this, I think, in the closing stages of this race or post-race, but with 57 points, and there's his boss. He's contemplating life at the moment. Kimi Räikkönen with 51. Ralf Schumacher with 43 is a replay of the incident as Michael loops around, which really is quite an extraordinary situation. Normally it's the bloke on the outside that finds himself in the kitty litter. Then on 39 points, Fernando Alonso and Juan Pablo Montoya. Another replay just to show us again precisely what happened. They actually made contact here, and how lucky was Montoya not to end up with a puncture in that front right. And usually when you sword somebody with the front wing end plate, it's all over, Red Rover. So 57 for Michael, 51 for Kimi, 43 for Ralph, 39 apiece for Alonso and Montoya, 37 for Barrichello. And the Constructors' Championship would see Ferrari on top with 94. Williams would then move into second with 82, McLaren with 80, and Renault up to 52.
They are finishing strongly, and in recent testing, we're expecting to do very well at Magny-Cours the following week. As we look again at the Jordan woes, this has been a very unhappy race for them, in particular Giancarlo Fisichella. We'll go back to Martin and James.
This is lap 56 of 60, the closing stages of the European Grand Prix, and we've got a massive engine blow up there for one of the Toyotas. It must be, I think it's D'Amato. Yes, it is indeed. He coasts straight on at the chicane, having blown up right in the braking zone for the chicane. It's been certainly a pretty eventful afternoon as far as the World Championship is concerned. Kimi Räikkönen took the lead at the start of the Grand Prix, driving away from everybody else, and his engine blew up. He thought he was really in trouble championship-wise because Michael Schumacher was looking pretty strong. He was overtaken off the start line by his brother Ralph, who was running in third place. As we look again at D'Amato's engine blow up there for Toyota. But then a few laps ago, in a side-by-side scrap going down into the hairpin, Juan Montoya went round the outside of Michael Schumacher. That's Giancarlo Fisichella's shredded right rear tyre on the Jordan, and the two cars touched and Schumacher went into a spin. He received a push from the marshals. He's now running in 6th place, and that will mean 3 World Championship points for him as opposed to the 6 he would have got in his original position. And I think we'll be talking about that one for quite a long time to come. 4 laps to go here at the Nürburgring.
Montoya did absolutely nothing wrong. If they penalise him for that and fine him, I'll personally pay the fine, because that would be outrageous. I think he was wrongly penalised in Malaysia a couple of years ago when Michael ran into the side of him, and he took the punishment for it with a stop-and-go penalty. Coulthard still not able to find a way past the Renault. He'll hope that they move that Toyota quickly from the NGK chicane, because that's the best chance he's got of overtaking, and there'll be waved yellows down there until they clear the Toyota out of the way. But that remains then Alonso 4th, Coulthard 5th, but Montoya surely cannot be penalised there. They're having a look at the incident. He left Schumacher enough space, no doubt about it. The question for me is, outside assistance, Michael Schumacher, will he be excluded? And that's certainly under discussion at the moment. Kimi Räikkönen talking to Norbert Haug there, and Mr. Huppert of Mercedes-Benz, Mansour Ogier, probably the nicest man in Formula One, I reckon. He's a great man, Mansour. What can you say to the young man? He did what he had to do, and the car wouldn't quite stay with him today.
No, indeed, the Mercedes engine letting go. It's been reasonably reliable this season. Then just saying bye to everyone. Managing Director of McLaren, Martin Whitmarsh, Ron Dennis, team principal. He's only going to get 6th place. That's what he's telling him.
Maybe.
That's what you call the arm around the shoulder technique of team management. Ted?
Well, I've been into Ferrari, spoken to the men there. They don't anticipate getting a fine for this, or a penalty rather. They say they're...
Whoa, Ted, sorry! David Coulthard, massively different in speed from Alonso, under braking into the chicane. What was going on then? Was it stuck throttle, do you think? No.
I think he was just getting ready to have a go at and misjudged quite where Alonso was going to brake. Alonso with clearly under braking problems, and Coulthard came with such a speed differential, and I think he'll be feeling that Alonso took the inside line and then moved one more time to regain the outside line. We'll have to see a replay of that, because we were virtually on to the incident as it happened. Coulthard out of the Grand Prix, beached in the gravel trap, no points for McLaren. And here we see it, look, Alonso goes inside and David started the move inside and basically just got a little bit too close to the back of the Renault. Here we are on board. He's going to try and go left, and just as he goes left, Alonso jinks left. David then has to drive to the right hand side. One of those things, a difficult one to call, but clearly Coulthard very surprised by the movement on the track of the Renault. I think it's just actually personally unfortunate that he'd tried to go left as Alonso decided to cover his base.
And the differential in speed is explained by the fact that David had yet to hit the brake pedal, whereas Alonso, moving across, did hit the brake at the same time.
Yeah, it's lucky David didn't run into the back of the Renault, because it would have launched him straight into the sky.
And into the TV compound, actually, which is right on the outside of there. That would have been pretty painful. Bouncing along then, David Coulthard, into his 4th retirement of this, what is proving to be a pretty sorry season for the Scotsman. After so much promise, winning the first Grand Prix. And no points at all then for the McLaren Mercedes squad. 2 to go. We're heading for yet another 18 points for Williams BMW. They had 29 in the 2 previous Grand Prix. A win for Montoya in Monaco, 2nd and 3rd in Montreal 2 weeks ago, and now a 1-2. Williams are definitely back in the hunt. Announcing this weekend the $1 billion deal with BMW that takes them through for another 5 years after the end of the current one to 2009. It's been a really buoyant weekend, you have to say, for Williams BMW. Just another word quickly on the point situation. Nick Heidfeld, would you believe, as a result of that incident of Coulthard, is up into 8th place. He started from the pit lane in the Sauber. That's a remarkable effort for the German. His teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 9th, and well, Heidfeld's been mega today, hasn't he? We haven't seen very much of him, but that's a great effort. Webber up to 6th, 3 more points for Jaguar, 2 points for Jenson Button in 7th place. That's salvaged something for them from what's been a pretty unpromising weekend otherwise. And as I say, Heidfeld picking up a point for 8th.
Yeah, so I'm keen to go back to Ted, and we were listening to him before we saw the Coulthard incident, and just hear what Ferrari think about a potential penalty for Michael Schumacher.
Well, Martin, this is what they think. They think the car was certainly in a dangerous position, so it was okay for the marshals to give him a push start. They certainly do not anticipate getting a penalty. Williams, by the way, can't believe that Montoya was under investigation for that. They reckon Michael just spun on his own.
Yes, but I would be surprised too in their part, because it was one of the great overtaking manoeuvres in Formula One as far as I'm concerned. He left Michael Schumacher enough space, but only just. He wouldn't have wanted any more paint on his tyres, otherwise there wasn't enough space. And then it was Michael that was forced into the error. Montoya left him enough space to get away with it, no doubt about it. So Montoya hopefully will receive no penalty at all. Ralf Schumacher coming into the NGK chicane then, and only a little way to go, James.
Yes, indeed, coming through then to collect a victory that he thoroughly deserves. It's been a wonderful performance by Ralf Schumacher, criticised 2 weeks ago in Montreal for not having a go. He certainly had a go today. He wins the European Grand Prix, a German on German soil. It's a Williams 1-2, and they are really in the championship hunt. Here comes Juan Montoya in 2nd place. We'll remember his move on Michael Schumacher for many years to come. Hopefully there won't be any ramifications in the steward's room afterwards. A fantastic performance, an up and down Grand Prix. It had its static moments, but it also had its moments of high drama. The removal of Kimi Raikkonen with a blown engine, the pass of Montoya on Michael Schumacher, which put the World Championship leader into a spin. Rubens Barrichello picks up yet another podium in what has been a quietly understated season for him. But really all the talk today about the Williams BMW team. Here's Alonso, who resisted the attentions of David Coulthard in the closing stages.
But is that Michael Schumacher right behind him then? They've not been lapped, so he's got to get across the line. Yes, indeed. Alonso's got a problem of some sort. Schumacher is there for position, can you believe, in 4th. There he goes. He just makes it. Michael Schumacher up to 5th with Coulthard's demise. And Heidfeld got a point in 8th, having started from the pit lane. Webber and Button 6th and 7th. Alonso clearly with a drama on the last lap, just held off a fast-closing Michael Schumacher.
And he's as happy as if he'd won the race, isn't he? I don't blame him, actually, because all race that thing has looked like a pig to drive, and he kept everybody behind him. He got in front of his teammate Trulli, kept Coulthard behind him, kept Michael Schumacher behind him. Another very solid performance then from a Fernando Alonso. And Michael Schumacher, they call him the luckiest driver in Formula One. He had that spin, and he's still managing to walk away from here with 4 World Championship points.
Yeah, and how often do you see one of those things, Beach, getting out of the gravel trap? Ted is with Sam Michael of Williams.
Well, Sam, congratulations. That was a stunning performance from Ralph against the odds.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. It was really good. We obviously, with our strategy, we ran a lot of fuel yesterday in qualifying because we wanted to go long. So we were carrying about 15 kilos more fuel than Ferrari and McLaren, and it paid off. So, you know, Ralph was looking strong even before Raikkonen stopped with the engine failure. So we're pretty confident that we could get him because we were going about 5 laps longer on the second stint as well. And Juan also did a good job to come back from where he came from. It was really good effort for the team today. 1-2 is what we need.
Well, that was there was a number of good drives in that Grand Prix, but in particular, as we look at the results, Ralph Schumacher and Juan Montoya for Williams. Remember back in Melbourne, first round, they started very, very shakily. McLaren was the only team taking the fight to Ferrari in the early rounds, and of course Coulthard picking up that victory. But how things have turned around since then. David has really struggled since, and by contrast, the Williams guys have just powered on. Kimi Raikkonen, devastating blow, but a little bit of a save in terms of Michael Schumacher's position. He picked up 1 towards the finish, of course, thanks to David Coulthard's exit, so 5th place for him and a few more points ahead of Kimi. And Mark Webber, a good, solid, tradesman-like performance again, Neil. He picked up places towards the end, largely through DNFs ahead of him, but you got to be there.
He did a great job, and in fact that's the best result for him for the season so far, in position 6 and more valuable points, as you point out. But what a great moment for this man, for the German, for Ralf Schumacher.
About 300,000 Germans they expect through this circuit across the weekend. They'll be pretty happy.
They'll be thrilled, and his team absolutely thrilled with this performance, and it comes on the back of some very strong testing performances at Silverstone last week. 3 days there for Montoya and came away with top position, and they've made genuine gains with this car. Intensive work. They're celebrating a new extended contract with BMW. That's Herbie Blasch from the FIA there, just guiding Ralph up to the podium. And this is very good news for Williams in terms of the Constructors' Championship. It gives them valuable points. It rockets them up to 82 points now. They're in the game. And Rubens, a bit quiet today, didn't see a lot of him, but still a good solid performance from him. It's kind of a hallmark of his championship today.
When we come back from the break, of course, we'll join the drivers on the podium and hear what they have to say in quite an eventful Nürburgring Grand Prix. And that's just one of the events right there. We'll be back shortly. For Kimi Raikkonen to get a pole position, and unfortunately, I shouldn't laugh, it's been a miserable day for him, indeed for the McLaren team. David Coulthard was really working hard to get some solid points for them, some sort of return from the European Grand Prix, and that all came to naught in the closing stages of the race. He was very lucky, in fact, Neil, wasn't he, under the circumstances? That car was almost sideways into the kitty litter, could have easily rolled. Yeah, but spectacular closing stages to this Grand Prix. Just about half the field trying to attack the back of Alonso's car, and even in the closing stages there, Michael was having a nibble at it as well. But extraordinary to see the difference, the speed differential between a car that's offered in a braking area and one that's still on it, and how Coulthard didn't end up just ripping the front off his car and the back off the Renault. Really quite extraordinary, but very frustrating for them. It's essentially their home Grand Prix in terms of their manufacturer support with Mercedes, and to come away without any points is a real disaster, and it'll put further pressure on them. As I said before in one of those breaks where we were just filling while the ITV guys were away in a break, it sort of comes on the back of a week of fairly heavy news for them at McLaren. The problems with the FIA, crash tests with the new chassis, the summer testing ban, so they can't do any ongoing development work with that car. Well, they're completely out of sync now, really, in the development of it, and the 2003 car is going to become the 2004 car if the delays keep going. And meanwhile, their key rivals from Germany,
in BMW in the back of these cars, and these cars are now performing brilliantly, gaining valuable points. A 1-2, look at that, lighter up Ralph, a 1-2 for Williams, and a terrific performance.
Great opportunity too for Ralph to step out of the shadow of Michael, particularly on the home circuit.
Probably delivers the smile that he's been looking for since Monaco, because when you start on the front row at Monaco and not end up on P1, it's frustrating.
What a great time for Ralph to break through.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? You look at the last three results now for the Williams team, and it's been such a strong run for them. They've really bagged some points here. You go back to Monaco, 4th place for Ralph, Canada 2nd place, and now a win today. You look at Montoya's performance, obviously win at Monaco, 3rd in Canada, 2nd here today. So really pulling together critical points now when it matters.
Ralph raced here 17 times as a junior. He scored his first win here, in fact, in 1993 in a BMW-powered Formula Junior. I'm sure those memories are a long way away as he savours the moment on the podium with Juan Montoya, his teammate, and Rubens Barrichello. And rarely do we see Michael Schumacher in recent times miss out on the podium while the car is still running at the end of the race. We'll come back with more after this.